Hello, and welcome to the weekly cryptocurrency review. My name is Bowen Keller, and I'm a senior analyst from Pure Investments coming at you live with a little market review. If you've been watching the videos and you know how it normally is done, normally I do not show my face, but I've been getting a few requests that I do so. We had one person say it was scammy or something. Now you know I'm not a robot. I'm a real live human. This is who I am. And without further ado, let's jump right into the market review. So looking at our top 10 cryptos, I just want to do a quick overview since the last time we talked. And there really hasn't been a dramatic change or dramatic shift, which I think is something that's really important to look at because when we see dramatic changes, dramatic shifts, it says something about the market, but when we don't, it says something even more. So if we see stagnation in the market and we see that our major players aren't really adjusting in pace, that can tell us something. And what it will tell us, well, I'll get more into that when we look at Bitcoin specifically, but what that really tells us is that the market is getting ready for some sort of change. If things are shifting, that means that the market is changing as they shift, obviously because they're shifting in market capitalization, but because we are seeing them stay in the same sort of positions, when we see them move, when we see them change in position, that's when the market's really going to start its real volatility again. And as we all know, the cryptocurrency market is the most volatile market of all of the current markets out there. But let's just do a quick review. Our overall market cap is at $390 billion, and I want to head right over here to check that out. What does that really mean? Well, we hit a low just recently. I mean, not an all-time low, but a recent low of around $370 billion, which was an interesting reversal from our high here of $470 billion, which is a good amount more, but nowhere near our all-time high. Is it still possible to hit $1 trillion for market cap at the end of 2018? I think absolutely. But if you guys look, of course, this graph looks just like this graph. So excluding Bitcoin, including Bitcoin, right? The graphs look very similar, as I always talk about. And one thing I did want to mention is on our Bitcoin graph, which, well, firstly, of course, you guys know I like mentioning this. Bitcoin to dollar, this graph right here, the run up and the steady fall does look exactly like this right here. And that is, of course, because Bitcoin controls the overall market. And so this sort of movement is the exact same as Bitcoin's sideways movement, generally downward sideways movement. But what I want to actually talk about is going back to the 1 year view, going back to that little dip I showed you guys before, right here at $370 billion. The reason that's really important to look at is because if you look at the date, it's May 18th, which, by the way, don't know why, but CoinMarketCap is May 18th as May 1st and April 18th as April 1st. Anyway, I don't know, but thought I'd mention that. So May 18th is the date I want to point out right here. This is our low, and ever since we've actually reversed about $20 billion in market capitalization going back upwards. Going back to here, you guys know I like looking at dominance. And then I want to talk about what's going on. Since our last video, it's been very similar. Very little has changed. Bitcoin has generally been rising, and others have been kind of stagnating at around the 25% mark. And Ethereum has been steadily rising up a few 0.1% at a time. So we've started, I think, since last week. Today's the 20th, so the 13th or so, or the 14th, we are at 17.9. Now we're at 18.5, so a slow and steady increase. What I actually wanted to talk about, though, is in the 7-day, which this is going to look awfully flatlined with just these three included. This is taking a while to load. There we go. Sorry about that. So May 18th is what I wanted to talk about. And May 18th, you can see we had our Bitcoin dominance at 37.5. Right there, 37.3. And then as May 18th went on, you can see it slowly but surely has been going down. Very slowly. And if you look at it on a 1 month view, it's a little bit easier to see. but because again those are just flat lines, but this is a very slight going down, and again that kind of mirrors what's happening with Bitcoin. I don't know why this is being so slow, my apologies, but let me just reveal some of my lines here. This is our May 18th line right here, and you can see as soon as Bitcoin had this little spike up and small, what is this, few percent increase, or 1%, 1 or 2% increase, I do believe, we actually saw, number one, we saw the overall market cap go up, which we already talked about, right? We saw the overall market cap go up almost $20 billion just from Bitcoin going like this, right? And the second thing that we saw is we saw Bitcoin's market cap, as you can see a little bit more clearly right here, slightly go down. So from 37.4 down to 37.14, which I know doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it is noticeable. And for the first time in a little bit, we are seeing Ethereum dip down just slightly, but I don't think this is sustained, and I'll talk about that in just 1 second. But first, let's look at Bitcoin. So, firstly, Bitcoin has a couple, well, more than a couple of things, but there's a lot of things going on. Number one, I wanted to say that I was with some of my other analysts, and we did call the dip down to 7,890, or whatever I put this line, yep, 95, which as you can see right here, you can see it hit a low of 7925. So I was off by a couple, let's see, what was that, $30 on Bitfinex, and I think I was accurate on Coinbase. We had a wick down to here, and we've already hopped up from that line, which is a beautiful support line. We've already hopped up now 10% from there, which is really a nice little healthy jump back up. And something I wanted to talk about with this is we are seeing Bitcoin's crazy ups and downs become less and less volatile, and this is something I really wanted to outline right here. I'm going to outline it in, yeah, fat yellow looks good. So starting right here, we had this massive run up, right? We had this massive run up all the way from this low value up to 20,000, back down right here, down to 12,000. Again, another giant run up right here with a massive fall back down, right? All the way down to 7,000. Massive run up right here to back up to 12,000. Drop down to 7,800. Little hop, drop. Little hop, drop. So if you look at the overall trend starting here, you can see we've had generally big drop, little increase, big drop, little increase, big drop, little increase, big drop. And now we're starting to see something new. We are seeing big increase, little drop. So I am expecting another big increase. And if you want to go into Elliott waves, you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and because it's Elliott wave theory, you can just kind of say that one doesn't count and just go like this. I'm not the biggest believer in Elliott wave theory, but essentially, there's your 1, here's your 2, if it'll draw, beautiful, what a lovely 2, 3, 4 right here, 5, and that is the end of our Elliott wave, although I really don't do anything with Elliott waves, so I will admit if this is not 100% how one of them works, that's okay. I really don't believe in them in general, because they are things that you can say you were right rather than actually predictory indicator. But anyway, looking at Bitcoin, you can see we have had this reversal, and since May 18th, with the price increasing, we have seen the dominance go down a little bit. Others' dominance start to slightly increase, but really it's been very slow in that sense as well. Looking at other things other than Bitcoin, though, which as you guys have heard, I'm quite bullish on. The number of bullish indicators that are currently happening are pretty impressive. There's really a good few of them. If you want to check out more of them, you can go to our premium section of our Discord, which will be in the link down below, so our website. And you can find all of our thoughts on there, in addition to chatting live with me and some other analysts at Pure. But going into our next thing, I want to talk about Ethereum. Ethereum has been extremely strong, and at Pure, we have been extremely bullish on Ethereum for a good little while. First, looking at this in the weekly view, I don't normally look at cryptocurrency in a weekly view, but I did want to for Ethereum, just because I think it's really cool to see that we had this massive run-up, right, in terms of Satoshi, of course. Massive run-up, massive fall back down. I think it was, I want to say 80. I could be wrong. yeah, 80% decrease, which really is an exceptional decrease in price. And then we had a much smaller run up because what was this? This was I can't remember, 1,000, right? And then we had 80% decrease, right? And then 300, and then we had once again, I can't quite remember, 50% decrease. So, these numbers really do make sense. An 80% decrease is a lot larger than a 50% decrease, but so is a 1,200% increase compared to 270. We're seeing Ethereum be really strong in the market. You can see ever since that faded, whatever the term is, since that wonderful, I'll say that, reversal day that Bitcoin had, Ethereum has been reversing so well. 4-3, let's just check over here. There it is. So ever since this day right here, where Bitcoin reversed, right? Because that's what I was just talking about, was with our 1, 2, 3, or however you want to say it. Right here, this is our reversal. We're now having increase, small drop down, increase, small drop down. If you guys are asking, well, where will the next drop down be? I mean, where will the next increase be to? Where will it increase to? Well, it's hard to tell. Bitcoin does not follow support lines well. And the way I want to make an outline of this is you can see right here, these three match up very nicely. But this one right here does not match up with anything else, really. If I drew a line from here to here, it really does not match up well with our low price point. So I could say, draw a very weird kind of line right here and say, it's going to, well, I did call this drop down here. We're going to see it increase to around 11,000. It's possible, but it's also Bitcoin. A big thing about market manipulation whales are that they like to take TA and throw it out the window. As soon as Bitcoin goes up past TA suggests, you're going to have a lot of people FOMO in and buy, which will be great for then whales to sell at a little bit of a higher price, causing a kind of panic sell, causing them to pick up more cheap Bitcoin. And on the inverse, if it falls slightly below support, you'll have a lot of people panic selling, making whales be able to pick up lots of Bitcoin for really cheap prices and then pump the price back up so they can sell it at, again, that premium I was just talking about. So having Bitcoin follow TA is really quite difficult. That being said, I think the major thing to watch is just watching where, you start to see these reversal signs. Like we saw a solid candle here, some stagnation, solid increase, and again, stagnation here, solid candle. And then as soon as we dip down below that point, right, you can notice we really didn't do that before. Right here, we had a dip, but it was even. Right here, we had a dip, but it was even. This was our first dip that was below our stagnation point. I know it's only 2 candles, but that's because we're looking on the daily. If we look at it in the 4-hour, we can see it really is the case that right here, boom, we dipped below those two, which we really hadn't seen because even these wicks were right where these wicks were, these wicks were where these wicks were. So I think that's really the reversal point you want to look for. Just like how here you can see a kind of crappy inverse head and shoulders, but that crappy inverse head and shoulders really does help the market reverse. Going back to Ethereum, sorry I got a little bit distracted. Ethereum has been really strong. I want to look at Ethereum actually in a USD because you can see very clearly that Ethereum has been doing excellently. Really steady increase, even with Bitcoin having its to USD decreases. Ethereum has really been having a steady increase with this one solid flag that's now we're seeing this pattern come out of the flag, right? We're seeing it increase out of the flag, and I think that will be really help for Ethereum to be to grow a little bit more. We've been quite bullish on Ethereum ever since. I remember Miles posted about how he was picking up a whole bunch of Ethereum. I can't remember how much, but he said a whole lot that he was picking up at. I meant to go Ethereum. My fault. Ethereum, US dollars. That's what I meant to do. Ever since he said he's picking it up at $430, I think he was saying, or no, $410. Yeah, that's what it was. Picking up at $410 right about here. We've seen 80% increase, including at the top 100% increase, doubling in price. Is the flippening still a possibility? Yes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and check out our prior video we made on it, as I think you'll be quite interested to see what I'm talking about. Next up, let's check our number 3, Ripple, right, who has been steadily in number 3, steadily in our top 5 for a good while. It was number 2 for a while, as a matter of fact. Bitcoin Cash, EOS behind it. What I want to say is Bitcoin Cash is getting quite close to Ripple, actually, as Ripple kind of slows down, Bitcoin Cash and EOS pick up. And EOS is now far ahead of Litecoin, which I think is very interesting because Litecoin, again, you guys know my feeling about EOS compared to Litecoin. I'm a big fan of Litecoin. Just in terms of that Litecoin is Bitcoin silver. So if Bitcoin's going up, Litecoin is as well. The graphs mirror each other very well. And versus EOS is an extended ICO where they're still asking for funding to create their project, but they're the 5th highest market cap. It's weird, but they're doing well. So with that, we'll go along with that and look at Ripple for 1 second. Ripple, we can see this kind of stagnation, and it had some small growth here, but really Ripple is not doing too hot. I think a lot of the industrial investors after this huge drop off have kind of been more wary around Ripple because Ripple is, again, with people who are not used to sustaining or holding these sort of, what do we have here? 60% losses, right? In the stock market, 10% is terrible. Versus 60% crypto, comes and goes, right? So looking at Ripple, you can really see that we had a tiny increase. I can't remember, what is this, 30%, 20%? Okay, 50%, never mind, that's not so small. But that increase, now has been diminished to 20% in total from its low. And we're really seeing it kind of stagnate, even as the rest of the market reverses, with Bitcoin having this green candle. The market is starting to reverse, as you can tell. Ethereum is doing well. Ripple's kind of not doing so hot. And even Bitcoin Cash, you guys know my feeling about Bitcoin Cash, and that I'm not a huge fan. I do think it's just a Bitcoin knockoff. But Bitcoin Cash does do what Bitcoin does, and Bitcoin Cash, with Bitcoin's green candles, had a massive green candle. EOS, same thing, massive amount of green movement as Bitcoin has gone up. And I will be getting to these in 1 second, but I do think that some of the industrial bulls have left Ripple. Next up, Bitcoin Cash. If we look at Bitcoin Cash, you guys know I don't like to focus on it too much. It's had a massive green candle just because Bitcoin's been reversing. As you guys know, I definitely do not suggest, or I can't give investment advice, but I personally do not think that Bitcoin Cash is not going to do well and will eventually falter. But again, that's just my opinion, and we'll see if I'm right about that. But Bitcoin Cash, this was during the big days of the fighting between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin right here. But the fight is really over, and Bitcoin won. Yeah, I really don't think Bitcoin Cash is going to do so well. Moving on to EOS. Again, EOS I want to look at because that's our number 5 with a $12 billion market cap, who, again, doesn't have a product. You can compare EOS to Cardano, who has a product, IOTA, who has a product, Neo, who has a product, and actually cryptocurrencies building off of it. So a working product that's actually being used, unlike some of the other ones I just mentioned. EOS doesn't even have a product yet. That being said, EOS has had some of the largest growth in crypto in a while. It's really one of the big names in crypto. It was the one that people were FOMOing into, like the giant run-up on Verge. We've had 2,005% increase, and that's in relation to Bitcoin. In US dollars, I think it was a little bit more. And I wanted to bust out the stochastic RSI here, as I actually did also in Bitcoin, but I didn't get there quite yet. So let's go back to EOS for 1 second because I was already there. We have seen it bottom out and have a bullish crossover here, which it didn't manage to break out. Kind of had a flag, didn't manage to break out, came down. Now we're seeing it trying to break out actually a second time, which I think is really interesting. Stochastic is kind of coming back up, but we're also seeing it maxed out absolutely, in the stochastic RSI on the 4-hour. Well, what does this mean? Well, when EOS was having some of its prior run-ups, last time, for example, it maxed out the stochastic RSI, it then dropped back down. And when it went back up again, didn't max out here, but it still dropped back down. When it maxed out here, well, it did keep going up until it hit here, and then it went down. So it's interesting. Whenever it does hit that max, it does end up going back down. So we'll see if the prophecy is true and it has a little dip here. But it's also very possible that a little dip to right here back to our support line could have the stochastic go down midway and then increase. But it's trying to break out of this flag right now. I think it's extraordinary that EOS is where it is at the moment, and if it were to increase more, especially on the top 5 list, I would be really surprised, I'm going to be honest, because I don't know if it needs to be there. But as long as people are excited on the price going up, the price is going to increase. Next up is our number 6 Litecoin. I know I normally do top 5, but I didn't want to talk about Litecoin because, as you know, I believe in it as Bitcoin silver. The silver to Bitcoin's gold. So we go over to Litecoin. And we're going to look at a couple things. Well, firstly, this was just from a while ago, something I posted. I said, hey, look, some hidden divergence, and luckily made a solid few percent. I don't think it was fantastic, but what is that? Yeah, 12%, which I'm not complaining about 12% in 4 days. That was pretty good for me. Nice little increase. And same one here, I did indeed say this was my entry zone right here above this blue line, and below this one we saw a nice little increase there. I think it was another few percent in like 6 days. Yeah, 14% in 6 days. Good little take profit at the top blue line right here. We're seeing some really interesting consolidation along with a really interesting stochastic growth. So we saw this is, bullish hidden divergence right here. But right here we're seeing something else that's very interesting, which is, again, the bottom's increasing, but the bottom's also increasing on the price. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, now we're seeing a very, very slight decrease and a very, very slight increase, which is actually not good. But the reason I'm not putting too many, I'm not betting too strongly on this is because this has been such a minor decrease that I wouldn't actually count it as lower lows. I would just kind of count it as flatlining. But we are seeing Litecoin do something really interesting. Let's look in the 4 hour to kind of zoom in, which is this kind of really crazy stagnation in the cryptocurrency market. Seeing, excluding this one kind of peak, we are seeing sustained only 4% movement, or even including this peak, 7%. But we are seeing this tiny movement right here. This really, if you look at the price range, especially for right here, look at this. This has been the price range. We're moving a 3% price range for a good few 4 hours. I definitely think Litecoin will be seeing some strong movement in one direction soon. Which direction do I think it is? Well, personally, because the stochastic is lowering so much, and as we talked about in the podcast, which if you haven't watched, I suggest you check out. Last video was just posted a little while ago. Stochastic is lowering pretty steadily. This slight rise here, but if the stochastic goes below our 20 line, I can definitely see Litecoin hitting a spike, maybe up to the 6-point line, maybe to this upper blue line of 0.018, but that's, a dream. But Litecoin's being very interesting. Going back to what I want to talk about here with Bitcoin. Sorry, I'm a little bit scatterbrained. I wanted to talk about the stochastic in terms of where we are. So in terms of where we are, we had right here be a low, and right here also be a second low. If you notice, the lows were actually very similar prices. I think there's a 3% price difference. So right here was one, and right here was one. Yep, 3% exactly. 3% price decrease. And now we're seeing it go back up. With a bottom of stochastic, especially a double bottom stochastic, you can see there's always a reversal. So right here to right here, this was much more major, as our low in price was right here all the way to right there, which is a 20% decrease, but then followed by a, sorry, I don't have these ones memorized, followed by, until the stochastic maxed out, 14% increase. But the difference is, again, now we're kind of seeing the market come back with a little bit of bullish nature. So if we saw a 3% decrease right there, we're going to see much more than a 3% increase. And also more than just a 3% decrease if we talk about from when it was capped out at the maximum right here. It's all the way down to here. 17% decrease. If we can estimate approximately 23% growth from where it was bottomed out in the second time, which is right here, we are going to see approximately growth to right there, exactly 10,000. And if we break 10,000, there's a bull run waiting to happen, because 10,000, goes on the news, Bitcoin's broken 10,000 again, blah, blah, blah. It could be huge. Well, guys, that's all I have to say in terms of this week's cryptocurrency review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys check out our link below and join our Discord. If you want to chat with me and other analysts live, we'll be there. Check out our Facebook, check out our Reddit, check out our Twitter, and all that jazz on the description below. Anyway, have a great day, guys.